Hello there, my name's Neil David and I'm the host of Eurograps Express, the podcast exclusively dedicated to the wrestling of Europe. If it's wrestling and it happens in Europe and it's good, we talk about it. Whether it's Rev Pro, Progress, WXW, Passion Pro, Pro Wrestling Chaos, Pro Wrestling North, we don't care, we talk about them all. If it's good and it's exciting, I want to share it with you. We're on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Check us out on the feed. Check us out on Twitter at EuroGrapsEXP. And join us for chat about European wrestling and a little bit of chat about cheese. Hopefully see you there.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Gotta let it go. So fast to finger down. Dance tonight together. Here everyone is singing. 你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for November 14th, 2023. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network or our own dedicated podcast feed on all podcast platforms or applications. You can follow us on Twitter at Open Voice Gate. If you'd like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing spot. You click the red box that says sponsor this podcast, and you can set up a one-time or reoccurring donation. No obligation whatsoever, but we would like to thank all of our previous donors. I'm one of your hosts. It's your old pal, Mike Spears, joined alongside, as always, your other host, Case Lowe. And Case, how are you doing today? It feels like that we finally had the big Dragongate show we kind of were waiting.
I'm doing very well. I'm in a very good mood. I have a cranberry Sprite. I am watching the Pacers currently win a basketball game, although there's a lot of time left to be played. And we're coming off the heels of what I think have been 2 excellent weeks of Dragongate programming. You know, we obviously had Gate of Destiny last week, which you and I talked extensively about. We thought the Open the Dream Gate match was one of the better Dragongate matches of the year. We liked the Brave Gate match. We liked the Twin Gate match. There was a lot of things that we liked in terms of the direction this company was going in. And then we come into this Korakuen Hall show, which, you know, I didn't think looked thrilling on paper. I thought the undercard in particular looked a little weak, and I wasn't sure what we were going to get from a few of the matches on this show just because they were so obviously set up to be angles. And what we got was, you know, not the most exciting undercard, but we got some stuff on these Dragongate shows that has actually created a little bit of buzz between the semi-main event and the main event. There are people that are not always keen on modern Dragongate, whether I agree or not is irrelevant, that are enjoying the Korakuen Hall matches, the last 2 on this show. So I'm in a very good mood. There was a lot to talk about this week, and I have no complaints.
Yeah, I feel like this Korakuen Hall show that we're going to be spending the lion's share of the show this week talking about. This was the show from Thursday. The 9th Case has the written review up on voicesofwrestling.com. I think that this show, in a lot of ways, is that typical Dragongate show that people would talk about from 2013 through 2016 about, like, okay, the undercard is there for what it was. I mean, like, we did have good undercards then, but I didn't have anything that I would call unoffensive or offensive. Some stuff actually I felt like over delivered there, and then we close out with the hot 8-man tag and the big angle coming out of the main event. It just was something where, like, we kind of were feeling like, at least I can only speak for myself, but for a while, it just kind of felt like we were building up to, like, this, like, one big moment that was going to kick off everything into the back parts of 2023 and looking into 2024. And I think with Big Hug, we got that moment. And if you look at how really the last 2.5 weeks have gone in the company, we are starting to see some movement on a unit shift level that was, I feel like, really needed, and especially coming out of Korakuen with now HYO with Luis Mante. I think we have to look at this as like, all right, we are they are used to like having a lot of plates spinning at one time, but at a certain level, we haven't had a at least storyline segment, I would say, like this in a couple years. At least that's how it feels like to me.
No, and just to zoom out for a second, you go back to World, and you have the unmasking of then Diamante, now Luis Mante, and so we all have this thought of what the next few months are going to look like. It turns out that he goes home. I still think it was to recover from an injury, but he goes home. Luckily, Dragongate sort of gets a gift. They get King of Gate. They don't need him involved, and so they're in this spot where, okay, they can focus on other things. You get the Shimizu story and the Minoru story, and they collide with one another, and you have the King of Gate finals. You go into Dangerous Gate, which I think we would all agree, okay, maybe not the best build there. We roll into September, and all of the focus in the company turns to Tien Revolution. He has, 6 matches, 7 matches, and then he gets hurt and is still out for this extended period of time. And I told everybody when he got hurt, I said, this is obviously not what they drew up. It's not what they want. It's not what I want. There could be a positive here, in the same way that every box of Lucky Charms has marshmallows. This could be the marshmallows. And I talked about how in 2005, which we all consider to be one of the best years of the company, the first 6 months of that year were all done on the fly because Milano Collection AT left the company unexpectedly, and they had to rip up all their booking plans and kind of figure out things as they go, and it worked. And in the immediate aftermath to Tien getting hurt, we came on the show and went, God, Dragongate's really boring right now. Like, we've covered this promotion for a long time. There are times where it's good. There's times when it's bad. It's never just boring like this. And they had that 4-week run or so where it was really boring. And then they locked in on Shimizu versus Kakuta, and Mante came back, and you started seeing D-Courage, get some momentum back, and it just all of a sudden things became interesting. And whereas the last few years, it seems like Dragongate, in a large sense, has built up to things, and then maybe that, you're expecting a certain level of payoff, and it just hasn't happened, either due to injury or due to change in direction or whatever. This hit, and it hit in a big way. I am certainly not going to be the person to make these grandiose claims that Dragongate is back, because I don't think they ever went anywhere. I think that's very short-sighted. I think that's poor analysis. But we are coming off of a very good show and a very successful week at the box office. I want to talk about that real quick before I throw it back to you, Mike. I just want to note that, after the poor number in Osaka for Gate of Destiny, they come in, they do 1356 at the Korakuen Hall show, and the night before on the Dragon Dia 5th anniversary show, they did a full house there, 404 fans. I saw photos of that show before the attendance was announced. I honestly thought there were more people in the building. They filled that place up on the floor. It's one of those buildings where, Japanese wrestling, just for whatever reason, has these gymnasiums where the seating is on the floor. They don't really pull down the bleachers at all. So there was obviously room to cram more people in there. They just sold seats on the floor, and that place was packed. So a very good box office back-to-back shows for Dragongate.
And with that show up in, it's in Nagano Prefecture. I think it's technically in Suzaka, but it's really, that's the biggest place that they could find to get in to run the show, basically, for Dia. Being able to, like, I'm looking right now, just population wise around Suzaka, that's a significant population showing up to it. So
yeah, Suzaka City, I mean, they ran here in 2022, and I think they did like 300 fans for it. But I mean, it's another one of those examples of Dragongate going to a tiny town, and I don't think. Let me look at the history of where they ran this city before. So they did 2007, 2012, 2022 in surrounding areas, not even that place specifically. So this is not a hotbed, but it is where Dragon Dia is from, and so they give it a little bit more love now.
Yeah, like the only other person that I believe is from just like his general area is Eita. And they haven't done 8 to Homecoming shows for like a decade or so.
No,
so,
that's a great point. I don't remember the last 8 to Homecoming show.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that when you look at and you're talking about how you make money in wrestling, at least Dragon Gate's the one company though that still very sticks to like the touring model. Although All Japan's starting to tour a little bit more again too.
Yes, and All Japan did 1320 for their most recent Korakuen Hall show. So Dragon Gate gets the edge, but it's essentially flat there, even Steven, on a loaded show that I'm going to sit down and watch at some point, because they did Doi versus Atsuki Aoyagi, and then the main event, Miyahara and Yuma Aoyagi versus Galeno Del Mal and Hayato Tamura. I heard Hayato Tamura, who of course people listening to this show know he's the most over guy in GLEAT. I heard he was excellent in that match.
Yeah, it's something where All Japan's figured it out, I feel like.
All Japan's very interesting.
Yeah.
And people that have listened to the show know I like All Japan less than everybody else, but I'm also fascinated by them because whereas pre-Muda retirement tour, Noah was doing some abysmal numbers in Korakuen Hall, but they would do really well for these big shows. In All Japan, and I'm talking a year or two ago, even almost 3 years ago now, like All Japan didn't crush these big shows. They didn't tour a ton, but they would do these great Korakuen numbers. They were kind of on par with what Dragon Gate was doing and what Stardom was doing. And now, All Japan seems to have real momentum. Nakajima, for however long he lasts there, and I hope it's longer than it seems like it's going to be, he is, to me, appointment viewing whatever he does in All Japan. And I personally am finding enjoyment in this promotion more so than I have in a very long time. I like Doi. I like the fact that he's in there. I like that they're using Abe for the Junior Battle Glory tournament. And, Miyahara and the Aoyagis, plural, Yuma and Atsuki, I think are both very, very entertaining.
Yeah, it's an interesting time there. And it's something where, as we kind of see more now that we're approaching, I would say, almost not a full year of everyone just open touring and everyone just basically having blanket open restrictions, but we're getting close to that. And that's when I go and I see, Pro Wrestling Noah does this tour of Hokkaido for the first time in however so long, when really not very many people go up to Hokkaido other than GLEAT goes because T-Hawk's from there. But it's not the whole up there, and you're seeing new buildings that they're starting to pack in. It's one of those things that you kind of, especially in areas like that, you kind of take note of, I feel like. But
the Noah thing is crazy real quick. I was looking at them yesterday. They've run 68 shows this year. 69 now, I think. That's nothing.
Nice. Yeah.
That's nice. Oh, I hate to blow by that. You're right. Nice. Dragon Gate, that's what they've done since July.
Yeah.
I'm so intrigued. And it's 68 shows, 25 of which have been in Tokyo. They seem to have no local promoters outside of that market. And now, they did 405 fans in Osaka #2 a few days ago.
And it's something where I'm actually now pulling up their rotation case. And it is essentially, if they aren't running places where they run TV, it's not happening. It's something where, at least with Noah, when you say it's 29 shows, how many of those, they've been doing this Monday Magic thing for just about a month, if not so. That's 6 more shows that are just that. So what you're really looking at maybe are 20 shows outside of Tokyo this year for them, maybe.
Yeah, it's crazy, and they have no buzz, and it blows my mind as somebody that has the interest that I have and is into the things that I am. I knew Muto made a big difference in this company in terms of their Western viewing habits. I can't believe as soon as he retired, people were done with Noah. It blows my mind. I can't believe it. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying people should watch it. I've lost interest as well, but that's just because I'm not a Jake Lee guy and I'm not a Kiyomiya guy, and Go Shiozaki was out and now Nakajima's gone, and I'm not really into LJ Cleary, with all due respect. So it's just, they're such an odd promotion, but the way they shed Western viewers post Muto retirement is really mind-blowing to me.
So, for the interests of just being clear about this, if you take Yokohama out of it, it's even worse, really. But like, they do run Sendai, they do run Osaka, they do run Owate occasionally. But if it's not Tokyo or like the overall Tokyo area, when you include Yokohama, it gets pretty, or Kawasaki also, kind of not local, but like in the general region, I would say, case it gets. They don't run a lot outside of Tokyo or the major city.
And something we've talked about on the show that I don't think a lot of other podcasts that cover Japanese wrestling do, but something that's really important to note for 2024, the Nagoya Aichi Prefectural Gymnasium is going under, I don't know if it's renovation or if it's closing down. I think they're doing renovations on it, but it's going to be closed all year next year. So that is a huge blow to Dragongate, because as we've talked about, that is their seemingly best market. It's the market where they most rival New Japan. It is a shot for GLEAT, because if you're going to bring in SB Kento, you would certainly want to be able to capitalize on his hometown market, and you can't do that in a mid-sized venue anymore. And for Noah, this is a spot where they run GHC Heavyweight Championship matches. So you're losing a mid-sized venue that actually really matters to that promotion, and so you're looking at probably less and less dates outside of Tokyo now.
Yeah, and it's where there is an argument population-wise that if you're starting a company in Japan, you're better off starting in either Tokyo or Osaka, just population-wise. But man, that's just a lot of underserved, just like environments like Suzudaka, like for Nagano, for Dragon Dia's hometown. I mean, like, this is one of those overall things that, you know, we talk about, like, oh, these people that get into wrestling that are from the smaller towns in Japan, it's not that they aren't seeing Noah, and Noah's getting them into wrestling. And especially now, even more so now that there's very little wrestling on like easy to access TV in Japan right now. It's all either on Abema or behind like cable walls. So it's one of those things that stands out, I would say.
And look, it's crazy to me just the lack of a footprint Noah seems to have within the rest of the country. Whereas, you know, Dragongate, this is their bread and butter. All Japan continues to tour more and more. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I don't get the impression that Stardom is doing gangbusters business outside of Tokyo. Like, I don't, do they do extremely well in Osaka? I'm not saying they bomb there. I'm not saying they don't have any sort of presence, but I don't know for sure. I mean, I don't feel like they're doing great anyways right now. I know they just had that brutal Korakuen show. It looks like their last Osaka #2 show did 486. I mean, that's pretty rough. And that's just one show. Everybody relax. Not an indictment on Stardom as a whole. As everybody, I'm just, free-flowing conversation here.
Right,
but,
and that is also, interestingly enough, case we know that like Dragongate and New Japan, they basically run Edion Arena Osaka. If not back-to-back nights, it's usually within the same weekend for like the last decade. That's always been the thing. Stardom has their Edion Arena Osaka show coming up this week.
Okay, all right. I'll be curious to know what that does. Something we didn't talk about last week, because I don't think it's worth noting. I don't think, had this not been the case, Dragongate would have done 3,000 fans in Gate of Destiny. So I wanted to avoid the conversation entirely, because it's just hard to balance not making it look like an excuse, because I don't think it is. It was noted to me, and again, we talked last week, there was a number of VoiceGate listeners at the show, people that I trust that live in Japan, that go to a lot of Dragongate shows, that offer very good insight into this podcast. They did note to me that they were playing Game 7 of the Japan series with a Kobe-based team and an Osaka-based team.
Oh, yeah.
As Gate of Destiny was going on. And the way the person described it was like, look, it wouldn't have mattered if the fucking Beatles were playing in Edion Osaka when Gate of Destiny was going on. The country was focused on Game 7 of the Japan series. That was the biggest deal there was. Again, I don't think it makes a difference to the Dragongate number. I still think they would have done that, but I was reminded by two different people, it was heavy competition in the local market.
And I mean, I would say like maybe not like a the difference between the 2400 and the 3000, like, I think that's you can't say that. But maybe 24 and 2450, maybe. Like, I think that's I mean, because, like, Case, I know that you basically keep surface level on the NPB. Like, the curse of Colonel Sanders is now lifted. Like, this is like the big curse in Japanese baseball was happening.
I was talking to somebody who lives in that area who was just going, you don't understand how big of a deal this is. This was what everybody was paying attention to. So especially after just listening to a podcast with someone whom I respect, but somebody who was wanting to credit a wrestler with drawing records for shows they weren't on, I certainly don't want to get into this argument of, well, they actually would have done better if they weren't going against baseball. No, if the main event was hot, they would have done a better number. But I'm now very curious to see what Stardom does without the heavy, at the very least, they probably killed a lot of that walk up that night with the Japan series going on, Game 7 and 2 local teams and a big curse at stake. It was sort of a perfect storm for, hey, we're probably not going to get a lot of people just waltzing up to the venue tonight.
Yeah, and it seems like that is something now that I'm really thinking about it, that, like, I never bring up when it happens just because it just always feels like it's just like, of course, their luck. It does seem like that. How many big shows go by? They're like, oh, there's a typhoon this day. There's something. There's been something. I feel like for Dragongate, at least for the last 24 months, and that's outside of COVID, of course, like the biggest walk-up killer of all. That I feel like that every big show we would hear it's like, oh yeah, no, we couldn't really set up the merch tents outside of World Cannon Hall because there's a typhoon. Or something happening like
that's something. Next time we have Jay on, which I think you and I are going to do in January, so everybody mark your calendars. We need to talk about that. There does seem to be a recurring theme of like, hey, this one-time worldly event happened in the market. Dragongate's running for a big show. It is going to kill the walk-up business.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that. You're right, though.
But the one thing that I would argue has not killed off walk-up business coming off the heels of the Korakuen Hall show. Well, Case, you made sure, above all people, I was always had in the back of my mind, I've always been pro Big Cat on this program, but Case, you were the one who was always making sure everyone says, like, you need to understand, HYO and Mante, they have a deep friendship, and keep your eye on it. Lo and behold, what do we have coming out of the Korakuen Hall main event? The 4-on-1 Luis Mante versus Z-Brats match. Shun Skywalker, Kai, HYO, and Ishin. But HYO turning on Z-Brats in the dying moments of the match, costing Shun the match. It was a powder attack gone wrong, as a lot of these Dragon Gate turns tend to be, going straight into a slingshot Hurricane Rana for Luis Mante winning, taking down Z-Brats in the post-match. It's clear these two are aligned. They're going with Big Hug right now because of the Big Hug that Ishikawa on Japanese commentary was going, oh, Big Hug. Did you see that clip, Case?
I did, yes.
Yeah. So we're going with that going forward. We do have for the upcoming Korakuen Hall show coming up. I believe it's the first on this in December, but the first Korakuen Hall show of December. We have 2 matches announced off of the heels of that. It is the December 5th Korakuen Hall show.
December 5th. They're in Hokkaido, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd.
Yeah, but we have 2 matches for that show. Luis Mante does not get his hands on Shun Skywalker so easily. He gets Kai, and Ishin puts the Brave Gate on the line against HYO, who points out quite pointedly he is under 82 kilos, so if you want to fight him, you're putting the belt on the line as well.
I thought all of this was just excellent. And look, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, put it in the fucking Case was right folder. I told everybody for 6 months, HYO and Mante are going to be teaming with one another when they both turn face. And I felt very strongly about that. I felt like I had a lot of information that was pointing in that direction, that those guys were going to be teaming with one another once this face turn happened. And it happened in the most satisfying way possible. I mean, this felt like one of the most memorable moments of the entire year. Not quite on the level of, say, the Dragon Dia unmasking for a few years ago, but if we look at the 5-year period as we continue to do, whether you want to go 5 years and the change in ownership, or you want to go 3 years in terms of when Ryo Saito got the pencil, we've talked about the eras lately and the memorable moments and the memorable matches. And this is certainly going to go up there. This HYO babyface turn was just done perfectly. It was exactly what it should have been. I thought the way the match was laid out was brilliant. I thought the turn was brilliant. I thought all of this stuff was so good. It ended in a satisfying way, and it feels like these two have real, genuine momentum.
It's something where I think that with HYO, at the very least, I think some credit has to be given to knowing, like, yes, executing the turn is always such a big thing in Dragongate and being able to, like, get the crowd investment into it. But I think him jumping into Mante's arms, like, that takes it up like a whole notch or two to a level now that, for as long as, if this thing really does have the wheels to it that we think it does, that they can refer to this now pretty much now for the rest of HYO's career, doing that jump up with us. It plays off very well. You already now with Yoshiki Kato joining Z-Brats, removing HYO, you are starting to evolve that heel unit into something where I still think we think that there's some shakeups to be had there, but we now leave Korakuen Hall and this really 5-week period since Mante coming back, and I think we take a step back and look at it, and I think these last 5 weeks have been exactly what the promotion has been needing after everything kind of not necessarily always been the spiciest when the attention's been on certain aspects of the promotion. As you were talking about pulling it back to here, now we take the step back, and what else can Luis Mante and HYO do to help reverse the tide? It seems like they found, like, the way to get the Korakuen audience as loud as that, as we've heard in years. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've got momentum because they're going to have this match on the 5th where they've got the 2 singles matches. I don't know if they're doing Doi Darts or something fun on the second Korakuen show of the month, or if they'll do a HYO Mante tag. You can run another one in January. They'll probably get a third guy. You can run a trios match or an 8-man in February. It just feels like we are trending in the direction where Mante is going to be the focus of these Korakuen Hall shows. And I think that's the right move, because I think you look at him in this building, going back to that July Korakuen show where he came out with Ultimo, announced that he wasn't doing King of Gate, but that he was going to come back and Dragongate was his home. Korakuen Hall is now his home building. This seems like a spot where, and I don't even think this is a dig on Kakuta, but Mante is kind of your main event guy now. And I think the promotion, given the number this show did, I think they should absolutely be embracing that. I think going forward, we need to see Mante and HYO in these main events until otherwise noted.
And it's something that, just so everyone can kind of get a sense of this, Luis Mante is not on the Okinawa tour this weekend, so that it's back to Kakuta and D-Courage up top, because that's what you kind of have to do with that. So it is something that I feel like we'll see even more stark kind of compare and contrast this weekend, at least, with the obvious tenor that it's an Okinawa show and you have all that stuff that happens with Okinawa.
Those shows look rough. I'm glad those are not on the network.
Yeah, like we know a year ago these shows would be, and boy, I'm right now looking at some of the shows, and my gosh, because this is going to be a rough watch. I'm glad we're just going to get a digest of it.
Yeah. Oh no, it'll be palatable that way. Nah, it's a rough looking time. Let me ask you, in regards to Mante, I think you and I are both on the same page that when you talk about the Foreigner Mount Rushmore, it's Ricochet, Pac, and Mante in some sort of order, and then you want to go Jack Evans, you want to go Rich Swann, you want to go Bandito or Flamita. I think those guys have a question there. But let's talk about the top 3 here. Just off of this moment alone, this Korakuen Hall closer, which comes off of a year where Luis Mante has been in a number of massive moments, where does he rank historically with Ricochet and Pac? And if he's not at the top of the list, what is going to help him surpass those guys in your eyes?
Okay, so next year we'll have a long talk about Ricochet and his Dragongate tenure. Like we're coming up on an important anniversary in 2024, so I think the real like kind of positioning right here, at least for me personally, for the near term, Pac is number one, and that's cemented just for the near term. That's not something that cannot be reassessed in a couple of years down the road after Mante gets this run. But at this moment, it's really, you're talking about him and Ricochet doesn't have this kind of emotional moment. It is something where, yes, he was a part of Monster Express and the Team Best Friends thing, but everyone knows who Tozawa was really excited about, right? Like everyone knows it was Uha, it wasn't Ricochet. And I think that that's something that will have him like at this point where I do think he lags behind Ricochet, if only just because of counting stats, for lack of better terms, case. I think that he has the intangible that he'll be able to cross by Ricochet pretty quickly on those counting stats, whereas Pac is still a little bit in the distance in my mind.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think? Like, okay, so Mante has this great moment. What's the Ricochet equivalent of that?
I mean, that's the hard thing. Like, is it him joining Monster Express? Is it like Tozawa was saying it like
how did he get there? I don't remember how Tozawa, was there an angle, or did he just kind of show up in orange one day?
Oh, this was all after how miserable Tozawa was after he got kicked out of Mad Blankey. And he was teaming with his friends, which were Shingo Takagi and Uha Nation. Uha comes back in this big team best friends versus Mad Blankey thing when he's still a member of Mad Blankey and he refuses to fight his best friend. And that's how Uha joins. Do not remember Ricochet whatsoever.
Yeah, interesting.
There just isn't that moment for him.
No, because he won the Triangle Gate belts on his first tour, but it was a victim of circumstances. It was Final Gate, it was Warriors International, and it doesn't have, like, I don't have a fond memory associated with that. The Brave Gate match where he beats Pac in Osaka is a great match, but it's not like, it wasn't like he was a made guy. You know, the Yoshino thing, I think, feels important to us, but it doesn't have that, like, oh my God, like, it's not a moment that I don't think Dragongate fans really think of fondly, universally.
Well, we think of it as the encyclopedia entry for the first foreigner to win the Dreamgate.
Yeah.
That's it.
I was just thinking a few days ago, because I keep on saying, like, the Tozawa stuff on my timeline, and then I'll see like I'll see Ricochet do like a moonsault, and they're like, man, Triple H is really letting him cook, and it hit me. He's been in WWE so long now.
Yeah,
I think there are people that listen to this podcast, or like people that listen to Rich and Joe or Jesse Collins, like smart, intelligent wrestling fans who don't know that Ricochet was like really the best wrestler in the world for like 5 years. Like, it's hard to explain what 2014 Ricochet was and then what 2016 Ricochet was. Like, he did it twice where, MVPs in sports, like in the NBA, MVPs are often built on narratives. And there were 2 different years where Ricochet was like, it's mine, guys. Like, I'm actually going to go all around the world and just take all these titles and win all these tournaments. But he's been gone for so long now. Like, there are people that have never seen, like, good Ricochet.
So, 2014 was the thing I was alluding to with Ricochet. Yeah, there might be a show miniseries or something coming about that in the next year, but it is something where, like, he has the accolades and the counting stats. And at one point, you could argue that if you are talking counting stats and kayfabe, by and large, no one had as a successful calendar year in wrestling as Ricochet had in 2014. Like, it's just, he won so much. Like, essentially is what that boils down to. But he doesn't have these moments, and I think some of that also is the way that he was teamed with Shima in a very protected role that no one has ever been kind of baby birded as much as a wrestler as Ricochet was by Shima. And
no,
I think
I'm gonna talk about it in the next segment. Actually, there's this Shima Ricochet moment I want to talk about.
Yeah. Let's put a pin in that part of it. But like,
baby birding, by the way, is a great way to describe that.
I mean, there's no other way.
No, it's right on the money.
There's no other way. But I guess like the thing that's going to be so interesting about this with Mante, as we compare and contrast him against the other two, is Ricochet, we kind of saw essentially like coming in spiked Mohicans Ricochet to the point where he was Dreamgate champion, and then he was bigger than, and then came back and stopped by, but it was not necessarily doing the big steps in front of the hometown fans. But though, like, all these things happened, and people would hear about it because it was Ricochet of Dragongate, and he would have the dragon mark next to him doing it, but it was not happening in front of these fans. Pac.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say Pac leaves, goes away for essentially 7 years, and you don't see the transformation with it. With Diamante, or with Luis Mante, we get to see it play out in front of us. We've seen it happen in front of us since 2020, since 2019, since this guy showed up and we were going, what is this guy doing here?
He was horrible.
He was.
We said he was maybe the worst foreigner they've ever brought in.
And we've seen him progress now to the point where last week in front of him was 1,350 fans in Korakuen Hall. It was the loudest moment in the company in years. And yes, some of that is the fact that cheering and all of that. But case this is not a fan base that was known to be silent during the pandemic. We got to see something special there. And I think that in of itself is going to make the comparison of Mante versus Pac, Mante versus Ricochet going to be so interesting over the next 18 months, because we get to see the elevation happen, play out in front of us, whereas we weren't necessarily given those moments with the other two.
So remind me again. So your order is Ricochet, Pac, Mante.
No, Pac, Ricochet, then Mante,
okay.
And pretty big distance between Pac and Ricochet.
Okay, all right, I follow now. Yeah, I'm with you. Pac is my number one, and I think it's going to take a Mante Dreamgate run to maybe dethrone him there. I do really feel like Mante and Ricochet are neck and neck right now, and I'm kind of just waiting on that next thing, and I don't know what that is, but I think 3 or 4 months from now, something's going to hit us, and I'm going to come on and say, remember that conversation in November? It's happened, and Mante is now the guy that we have to look at as genuine foreign excellence. And, Ricochet was not a shoo-in when he came over, but I think 2010 Ricochet was further along than 2019 Diamante. 2007 Pac was not a shoo-in, but I think he was further ahead than 2019 Diamante. The growth that this guy has made in less than 5 years is the greatest testament to, if you go to Dragongate, you will get better.
Yeah, I don't think there's a better way to describe him than that. Well, we were talking about Baby Bird in case, and I think that I'm just ripping the Band-Aid. We're not doing a fancy transition here. The other big story coming out of Korakuen Hall last Thursday was the 8-man tag D-Courage versus Natural Vibes. The first 8-man tag for D-Courage as a 4-man group, as the show opened with the formal announcement, the formal invitation of Ryoya Tanaka to join D-Courage. He does so and joins them in the semi-main event, D-Courage versus KZ, Jason Lee, Strong Machine J, and Jackie Funky Kamei. It is Kamei getting the win with a JFK out of a Jackie knife and looking like he was just one moment away getting pinned by the rookie upstart. And I think we have to just immediately talk about the rocket ship Baby Bird match that we got to see. Kay says, in one night, the company did it again. Ryoya Tanaka is now a guy.
So this is what sets Dragongate apart from every other promotion. And you and I obviously, have never stopped down and gone, this is what we like about Dragongate. This is why we do this podcast. But I think it's worth noting within the confines of this match that this match right here, forget the emotion in storytelling of the main event, where the main event was storytelling done right. It wasn't over dramatic. It actually had emotion to it, and it was just beautifully laid out. It's matches like this that, for a promotion, oddly enough, that is known for pop and circumstance and moves with a Z and being fast moving and progressive. It's the fact that Dragongate does the little things that I think set them apart from every other promotion. And I think, and I'll go through a few different examples here, the thing that still sets this promotion apart, whether it's Shima's promotion, or Shingo's on top, or Yamadoi's on top, or now we see D-Courage on top, is that they are able to have matches like this. I don't think there's ever been a promotion in the history of wrestling that is as successful as anointing guys within a match. Because we knew from the opening sequence, this match was entirely going to be about Ryoya Tanaka, and it was a sink or swim moment for him. If he would have slipped on a dive, or if he would have been late on a transition, if he would have botched a roll-up, a flash pin sequence, okay, we would have known, he would have been exposed, and we would have gone one step forward, two steps back. But Tanaka follows in this lineage of Dragongate guys that are thrown into the deep end, and it turns out that they know how to swim. And this match was so special because in the litany of great matches that we've seen this year, and the litany of great matches to come, next year, 5 years from now, a decade from now, we are going to remember this match. They did something special with Tanaka here in the same way that on March 31st, 2006, the guys in Dragongate got together, they went up to Gabe Sapolsky, and they said, watch, we're going to make Dragon Kid a star in this match. And then they did. In the same way that Shima baby birded Ricochet at Untouchable 2010 in Chicago, it was Shima and Ricochet versus Speed Muscle. And the entire match was, look at all of these things Ricochet can do. He is now a superstar. And it worked. In the same way that Takahiro Yamamura got the chance in 2017 to have a 20-minute time limit draw in match number 2 and then come back in the semi-main event and show his worth. He was a made man going forward. I don't think there's a promotion, especially in multi-man matches, that can do what these guys do. They push all of their chips in, and they have these little moments throughout the match. Mike, think about this. The match opens. They start off hot. D-Courage clears the ring, and Ryoya Tanaka does a huge no-touch tope to the floor. It is an immediate spotlight on the new guy, and he sticks the landing. As they go throughout the match, there's a great spot where Daya does a dive, and then Yoshioka does a dive, and then Kakuta does a hip attack. And again, they leave Tanaka in the ring to do his signature move, and he hits that Spanish fly, and he nearly gets the pin. The focus is all on him. And then they go to the finish. And even though Tanaka loses, the focus is on him. And he's hanging in there with Kamei, who might be the single best worker on the roster, not named Shun Skywalker. He's right there with him. It is impossible not to think higher of Ryoya Tanaka after watching this match. And they did it in such an interesting way. And here's where I want to compare it to other promotions before I kick it back to you. You think about the way that other promotions have elevated guys within the ring. In Noah in All Japan, and this is a generalization, but I think this is largely true, they get their ass kicked, and it elevates them up the card. Think about the Kenta Trial Series. Think about what Nakajima went through. Think about what Kiyomiya went through just a few years ago. There's not a lot of Noah matches because they come from the branch of All Japan, where you have shining young guy doing great things in a match, and that makes him better off. What you have is shiny young guy gets kicked in the face as hard as he can, the crowd connects to him, and then you slow build from there. But it's never an example of like, oh my god, did you see Kiyomiya? Like, he did all of these great things. He went lockstep with so-and-so, and now he's a big star. That's not the way they do these things. In New Japan, it's so built off of the finish. Okada and Tanahashi in February of 2012, they could have had the same match they had. Okada could have done all of the same things that he did, but if he would have taken a high fly flow at the end, Okada's career just would have never been the same. You think about the G1 finals where they make guys, where they establish guys, where they set them on their way to headline Wrestle Kingdom. It's not what they do in the match. It's what they do in the finish. The finish is what matters there, possibly because they're, the king of sport. They're supposed to be as lifelike as they possibly can. It's a matter of wins and losses. Dragongate to me, and I'm curious as to what you think, is the only promotion that can make guys within the confines of the match win or loss. And it's not that one way is better than the other. It's not that one is right and wrong, but I just love what they do time after time after time after time. And Ryoya Tanaka was just another example of that.
And I think a way that they accomplish this, and I think you're dead on with your points, is that how many times have we seen D-Courage versus Natural Vibes over the last 18 months? Like, essentially, since Madoka Kakuta has joined D-Courage and they became a trio, that has been a constant match. That has been a match that they've run by almost every combination. They've had a Dragon Kid in to make it an 8-man tag. They found all the ways you could do those sorts of matches. And you do all those matches in the house shows. You do them match 3, match 4 on Kobe, not in the main event, but you do these matches so much and you get so familiar with each other to an extent that in a lot of ways we got kind of 2 matches happening here. We got the Natural Vibes versus D-Courage match that we've seen upwards of 20, 30 times. Or we also have this interesting debut kind of breaking out of this guy getting plugged into this established formula and D-Courage throughout the match. And I thought that this was like one of the real brilliant things about the match, going like, oh, they aren't completely a flowing 4-guy group yet. You have Yoshioka and Kakuta going like, get out of the way, Tanaka, we're doing stuff here. Or they're like, okay, we're waiting for you to, that you could tell that this is a unit that's figuring it out there. And I find that so compelling that you don't have those opportunities for storytelling in the way that King's Road tells stories. As you said, you grow to love them by seeing them get the tar beat out of them, and you aspire for them to win. You get the catharsis through that.
Yeah, and it largely works. I mean, for Noah, Noah hasn't worked in 15 years, but it worked in for theory. A long time. In theory, it worked.
There was a reason why everyone just went to Baba and was like, oh, he's a genius, because he figured out a very simple formula that people were going to buy into with that. But I think that you have so many things that kind of create the modern house style in Dragongate that I think that a lot of it, I think one of the reasons why this match got pulled off, though, goes back to the fact of how many times D-Courage would have faced off against this combination and a lead up to it that allows them to hit all of their sequences perfectly, and that allows basically the eye to be drawn to Ryoya Tanaka throughout the match.
I'm so interested, and I'm gonna try to send off some DMs. I don't know if they'll get answered or not, but I'm gonna try to ask around on Tanaka, because I think the way that he's been presented has been so interesting. Because I've harped on this, and I'll make it quick again. But guy came in, had all this hype around him, but it's not like he was immediately thrust into the spotlight, and it's not like he was doing these crazy things. He was a guy that was showing a lot of potential and slowly getting better and better. He reminds me of, if you remember when the Bucks did their first Dragongate tour, they've talked about how they were so nervous before the tour because they were like, oh my God, they go so fast, how are we going to keep up? And then they realized after a few shows, it was like, oh, it's a formula. They plug and play, but there's rhythms here that we can keep up with. And I almost feel like in the same way, I don't think Kato got this treatment. I don't think T and Revolution was going to get this treatment. I don't even think, you look at the class before, Kamei and Kabune and Kakuta, I think they were thrown into higher impact, heavy intensity matches quicker. With Tanaka, they really let him figure out a sort of baseline, his own sort of rhythm, and then they plugged and played into Vibes and D-Courage, which is a winning combination no matter who's in Vibes, and obviously the trio and D-Courage. It just works every time. And Tanaka, he's gonna join this illustrious group of successful multi-man matches now just by being himself. It seems like it's the perfect scenario for him.
So just for a point of comparison, I wanted to check this out here. Madoka Kakuta has been in 30 matches with KZ since he joined Natural Vibes. 30.
Jesus.
So, and it's something where the 2 days before this, they essentially had, if not the same match, everyone except for UT getting subbed in for Kamei. So, they will do this match now on repeat. It's now the new touring match, I feel like.
It is. And we go through different eras of this where, they're going to trot this out to the tiny towns, and they're going to try to make something out of Tanaka in every market they've got, and they're in no rush. He's a young guy. He's got the rest of his career ahead of him, but man, he's off to a good start. I mean, credit to you. You've been screaming about D-Courage getting somebody new in the mix, and I don't think they could have found a better option than Ryoya Tanaka.
And it's something that, I mean, we look at what Tanaka has done so far, and it's not for a lack of opportunity. Whenever he's been put in the positions, he's by and large done this. Just something that amuses me, Case. Ryoya Tanaka has a cage match profile. I still don't think Manarita has one.
Oh, well, we got to get on that then.
Manarita has one.
Okay,
Manarita
all right.
has
No,
one.
you know who doesn't have one is Estrella.
I mean, does Estrella need to have one?
Well, I think he'd have a very interesting cage match profile.
that is very
Estrella,
true.
I was leaving work a few days ago, and Estrella posted a photo on his Instagram story that was at like 2 minutes away from my office. And I was like, oh my God, where is this short Japanese man? I want to say hi to him so bad. I was like, he is breathing on me. He is so close to where I'm at. It's a shame I can't find him right now.
Yeah, so still does not have a profile.
Yeah, that's a shame, just because we're eventually, when he gets a profile, we'll fall into an Estrella wormhole and go, wow. So that's what the Midwest Indies were like in 2023.
So I'm enjoying this right now. If you couldn't tell, Case, people who are still listed on the Dragongate roster on Cage Match right now. I'll be quick. We're not going to take a lot of time.
Can I take some guesses as to who's there?
Oh yeah, please do.
Naoki Tanizaki.
Naoki Tanizaki not listed.
Oji Shiba.
Oji Shiba 0 for 2. You're doing real good at picking people who are not on the roster.
Okay, here's the one that I want, and I'll stop guessing after this. I hope this person's still listed. Are you ready?
Yep.
Anthony Nese.
Sadly, is not like the Gaora website.
Where for those that don't know, Anthony Nese did one tour literally 10 years ago. It was October and November of 2013, and he had a profile on the Gaora website through like mid 2016. He just wouldn't get rid of his page.
I have basically up until Monster Express finally died, he was listed on profile. Like, I have Dragongate programs with Anthony Nese in it, like 3 years, like after Cruiserweight Classic appeared. So people on this profile page that will get a laugh out of Case. First off, Kenichiro Arai, naturally, he's on this profile page.
He's on the roster.
He's on the roster. I mean, you kind of got to do that for him. And Anthony W. Mori, he's listed. I mean, he's a head of the front office, but he's listed on the roster. I do have a question about if they should really have Sora Fujikawa still listed on the roster.
He should be taken off that roster.
Yeah.
Look, in my heart, he's still there. In my heart, so much potential, but not on the roster anymore.
Taku Iwasa listed on the roster here.
A man still on the roster in your heart, but I don't think in all actuality.
I mean, has never left it, baby. I mean, what else is there to say about that? Getting back to the 8-man tag, I think the thing that really, talking about Tanaka taking the opportunities here, every single sequence ended with focus going towards Tanaka. The heat was not on Daya for the first time ever in a D-Courage match. It was on Tanaka, and Tanaka was great at playing babyface in peril. He's got it, and the crowd is going to latch on to it. I just really, the thing that got me on this was Yoshioka maybe found his special role as the big heater, like his hot tag here, Case.
Yeah, no, this was everything about this was great. I mean, I still marvel at just how good Kamei is. You know, it's another one of those things that's something we talk about a lot where, you know, if these guys worked at another promotion, I feel like they'd get more credit. And if Kamei was even a New Japan junior at his talent level, I think people would just be salivating over the guy. You know, I think there'd be, you know, period at Tony Khan, when is Janky Funky Kamei coming over? He's just not getting the right eyeballs on him. But, you know, I'm assembling the list of the best 50 wrestlers in the world this year, and Kamei's a top 20 guy. He just has to be. You know, you think about not only the great matches he's been in, but he's become the go-to glue guy. And it's funny, like you and I, again, not to pat ourselves on the back, but we kind of nailed this a few years ago. We said, look, Kamei is turning into this generation's Genki Horiguchi. It doesn't seem like an accident that they're teaming together. And now Kamei is this generation's Genki Horiguchi. Like it's amazing how that worked out, isn't it?
He's Big Match Jack, and I feel like I've been like screaming that. And what it boils down to essentially, and it's a Dragongate being Dragongate thing. You take Jackie Funky Kamei, you put him on the Japanese indies, and I bet he instantly gets more of like a smattering of talk, I would say. Easily.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah. I mean, there was nobody on the indies other than maybe, I mean, I like Brian Keith, but Kamei's better. I mean, if Kamei was an American wrestler, people would, again, they think of him as one of the best wrestlers in the world.
But I would think if he was even a Japanese indie wrestler, we would probably hear a little bit more.
Yeah. Oh my god, because and I say this with love, but like the Big Japan perverts, they'd be all about him.
Yeah, no.
The DDT people?
If he was an astronaut instead of Nomura, we wouldn't be able to go anywhere without hearing about that tag team.
No, and this is, I mean, like, literally no hate. Like, this isn't a knock on anybody, but he's better than Mao in DDT.
I mean...
that's like the comp is, like, think about the buzz that he gets, and I think he's great, mind you, but Kamei's, twice the wrestler he is.
Is Kamei better than Yuki Ueno?
I think so, but I'm not super high on him.
I'm high on Ueno. I think he is great. He is the first DDT young guy who I've actually like reached out and grabbed me when I saw him. But
I don't look at him. I guess let me clarify. I think he's fine. I don't look at him as like, oh, that's a guy like I'm circling his name. I gotta watch all of his stuff that hits tape. That's just not where I'm at with anybody in DDT right now. But no, I mean I think Kamei's better, but I at least think that one's a little closer.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like how, but do people watch DDT now? That's the thing.
I don't know.
I was trying to think
I was just thinking about that.
If I could say something hyperbolic enough that people would actually like push back. But
what's the big DDT match this year? Because I don't have any on my spreadsheet.
I think it's either Jericho versus Akasha or Brooks versus. I mean, like I liked Brooks versus when Brooks won the title, but that also requires a whole lot of Yuji Ito, like a lot of Yuji Hino. Like that's the thing.
And I was into that a decade ago. I'm not as into it now.
Yeah. It's kind of sad.
Okay, so it's look, I haven't watched a single Brooks defense, but it looks like it's a lot of Brooks stuff that got pimped pretty hard on Cage Match this year, kind of floating around that 8.0 range. But I mean, maybe. Oh, I watched Brooks versus Higuchi. That was good. That was from May. I remember that. But it's not like I don't think I'm ignoring DDT Rex this year. I just don't think there's a lot of them.
Yeah, that just seems to be kind of distinctly the vibe happening, at least over there with that.
But I would say other than Takeshita and maybe Higuchi, but it feels like, I mean, Higuchi was one of the best wrestlers in the world last year. I don't think he's done anything notable this year. And that's maybe on Higuchi. I think Kamei is better than that entire roster.
I mean, Endo is the one that I feel like just sadly.
Oh, I think Kamei's better than Endo.
I think Endo doesn't get concussed, and we have a different conversation here.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's the thing.
Look, Takeshita's who he became, and Endo was Endo, and I think that's kind of everything that needs to be said there. And granted, maybe somebody had aspirations for North America and somebody didn't, but no, I mean, I haven't cared about Endo in a long time. I mean, he peaks very high, but I have no interest in like the match-to-match life of Tetsuya Endo.
That's fair. Did you have any other big notes on D-Courage versus Natural Vibes? I imagine this will probably make the Gaora YouTube in pretty short order, I think.
Yeah, that's a great call. No, the only other thing I want to note is they're doing something interesting with Tanaka where it's kind of one of those things, take note of it now and enjoy the payoff later. I can't tell what direction, I don't know how they're going to pay it off, but this is 2 matches in a row where he's essentially lost just by being like a new guy. He hits the Stardust Press on Ishin, and then Ishin rolls his momentum into a pinfall and he loses that way. And then here, he hits a big suplex on Kamei in the middle of the ring, and then he goes to step over Kamei, and Kamei grabs him, Jackie Knife, Tanaka reverses the pin, but then he gets caught, Torbolino, crucifix, and then he's done. It's 2 times in a row now where they've done a very specific, hey, Tanaka gets caught being oblivious. Just be aware of that going forward.
And elsewhere on this Korakuen show, we talked about that the undercard wasn't necessarily there, wasn't necessarily a deep undercard. We did have a big match 5. We talked about it on the preview. Masaki Mochizuki versus Yoshiki Kato. Yoshiki Kato wins by disqualification as a injured junior hits the ring, throws off referee Yagi and tries to beat this guy's ass. He then in the post match afterwards, Junior really just decided that he's going to want to take on everyone. Case after he comes back from this injury, it feels like.
Yeah, I did not see this coming, and it's one of those crystal ball moments where it's like, okay, well, I want to know obviously what they would have done if Tien never got hurt, but now I want to know what they were going to do before Junior dislocated his kneecap, which sounds, by the way, like a terrible injury. Oh my god.
Yeah, that there are a few things to me that like sound like personally more horrifying than dislocating your kneecap. And I guess that really answers the question about that spot at Gate of Destiny.
Yeah, it's a real bummer because this year has been marred by injury, and I still think he's just been otherworldly. So it's a shame he can't finish the year with a big match. But yeah, you get Kato versus Mochi in a singles match here. Love the start where Mochi greets him with a straight right hand to the face, and it looked like that could have been the match. Kato comes back, credit to him. He purpled the chest of Mochizuki with a few of those chops. And then right when Kato starts to get momentum, Junior comes in, beats him up with the crutch, beats up Yagi. And so we're not only going to get Junior versus Kato, obviously, at some point, but like you were saying, Junior laid down the gauntlet, and we'll get that father and son match eventually.
Yeah, so don't have an injury report on expectations. Just if you're getting a sense of mind, I think probably we won't see Junior again this year. January, I feel pretty confident about, I would say. But yeah, he basically says, like, I'm done with all of this. I'm done with getting turned on. I'm done with you, Dad, and I'm going to, when I come back, I want to take everyone on. I want a singles match with you. And big moment. And I think that really what we were trying to figure out, like M3K, we were at a point where, Junior being out, everything kind of accomplished. Twin Gates off Susumu and Kondo, you could close up shop, and now we kind of have the last thing to do before M3K can go away, and that is Junior trying to kick his dad's ass.
It's excellent. As we approach the 25th anniversary of the Dragon system next year, and you and I have a lot of stuff planned, especially just with the history of certain units, I think M3K is a unit that I'm going to remember very fondly a year from now. And I think 5 years from now and a decade from now, it will also age very, very well. I love what they've done with this unit. I love what they've done for Junior. It's a shame. It seems like it's coming to an end by way of a Junior injury, but I am glad they're getting to this point because now I feel like they've gotten everything they can out of this unit.
Case, I'm going to age myself here. Have you ever seen 2007 comedy Ode, Hot Rod?
Okay, that's a movie that is big with people my age, but it's it's not a movie that I've seen.
Yeah, I was going to say like a Lonely Island plus Danny McBride slapstick fest really wasn't your thing. But the overall conceit about it was eventually Andy Samberg wanted to beat the shit out of his stepdad, played by Ian McShane. And I do kind of feel like now we are entering a phase where Junior's going to do whatever he can now to try to punch his dad in the face. And I'm here for that.
I'm into it. I really, really enjoy what they've done with Junior this year. As I've said, he's been interesting since the moment he debuted in this promotion. They've kept him interesting since the moment he debuted in this promotion, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, and it's something where I feel like you do these two matches, you're able to kind of put a bow on the M3K era, and now we only got glimpses of it, and it was always something that kind of came back in bit Junior, like, other than like him leading the troops into Buyuden, there's not a whole lot of Junior with like his peers. That I think that's going to be the really fun thing about him in 2024 is now it feels like he can explore that, and I'm interested to see like, all right, now obviously he has beef against Kato, but what is going to happen when Kaito Nagano comes back? And now, like, how is he going to play into these kind of things? Like, we're starting to, like, I feel like that the big story of the last, like, 10 days is kind of finally getting this sort of identity for the 2021s and 2022 kids.
I think that's a great point, is it does feel like we're slowly, maybe not slowly rather, but maybe we're just simply transitioning into a stage where guys that have been in a certain place are not going to be in that place at this time next year, at least ideally. So it's been good movement up and down the card. I'm thrilled as we head into the end of the year. You know, December is very busy. I was just looking at the calendar as it conflicts with my personal schedule, and I was like, oh, that first week of December is not a good one for me. But I will catch up. I will binge watch, and I am very excited for what's to come in December with Dragongate.
Absolutely. Let me run through the full Korakuen card real quick before we move on and start to wrap things up. We talked about most of it. Otherwhere on the undercard, they opened with Daiki Yanagiuchi versus Punch Tominaga. Punch won with 6 minutes with a PT kick. Big Boss Shimizu and UT versus Genki Horiguchi and Takashi Yoshida. It was Shimizu with the power boss bomb on Horiguchi, and then we had a veterans match. Susumu Mochizuki, Yasushi Kanda, and proud Hanshin Tiger fan Kenichiro Rai coming out, and not just the jersey, but the yellow tights supporting the Hanshin Tigers Japan Series win. That didn't help them out. They still lost to Ultimo, Don Fuji, and Kagatora. Kaganui on Yasushi Kanda. Kagatora has gotten a couple guys with that on the undercard. Something maybe not worth paying a pen in, but don't act surprised when he gets like a big flash pen with that soon. And then we had an 8-man tag. Yamato, Dragon Kid, Shuji Kondo, and Eita versus Naruki Doi and Gold Class. He came out with Gold Class, not a member of Gold Class. Benkei got the pen, or got pinned by Yamato with the Frankensteiner of the Almighty. That match had a little bit more heart than I expected.
Oh, it was a good little time. I loved the spot. I can't think of the move name right now. What's the move Kondo does where he's standing in front of the guy and he grabs him by the head and throws him over his body?
Oh, the hair whip move?
Yeah, thank you. I call it the hair whip too. That's what I always have in my notes. So Minoru's on the mat, and he does that with Eita, and then he does that with Dragon Kid. And then he has this great moment with Yamato where he and Yamato stare each other down. And Yamato's like, all right, I guess we're going to do this. And then he does it to Yamato. That is a goaltending on the Philadelphia 76ers. Sorry, we're coming down to the closing wire here. I got distracted. He and Yamato do it, and then Minoru moves out of the way. It was just fantastic. It was a classic Dragongate spot.
Yeah, it was a good bit of fun there. It just was like a good undercard. When a Punch Tominaga opener did not completely ruin me because Daiki went for it the entire match. It was a good. It was a solid cork and yet another one in this streak that they've had that they really were able to do this. Just for my own edification case, I pulled up one of the few wikias that have moves, and Shuji Kondo used a shooting star press allegedly once in 2010 as a finishing move.
I need to see the tape on that. That sounds like a project for Alan Forel. I'm sure he knows.
Yep. Part of me saying this was hoping that Alan would notice me say this and be like,
that's in his wheelhouse. We've all got our specialty, and that is up his alley.
Yeah. If there's one person I know that we could trust with the secrets of, you're gonna know where a Shuji Kondo shooting star press attempt was, it would be him for that. But it was a pretty solid Korakuen Hall show altogether. We talked a little bit about this when we were talking about the 8-man tag elevation matches. Of course, we've talked a lot about the Takahiro Yamamura in 2017 as an elevation match, and really an elevation match, an elevation night. The untouchable Spike Mohicans versus Speed Muscle match as well. Okay, so what other ones do you have on your list? I've got a couple great elevation matches in Dragongate history, because it feels like that this is the unique thing to this promotion.
Yeah. So again, in the same vein as that Tanaka 8-man, I would have the ones you listed. I would have Jackie Funky Kamei and Jason Lee versus Shun Mante from Kobe World 2022. I think that was the match where they said, this is the Jackie Funky Kamei match. He's wrestler A going into the match. He's wrestler B coming out of it, and I think they succeeded there. I mentioned Takahiro Yamamura earlier. The other one that I wanted to mention, I think it was successful in the moment. It failed in the long term, but it's a match that I rewatched today, and it is just so marvelous. And they set this guy up for success, and it just didn't work out. But Shima and June, all caps June from the T2P class, versus Magnum Tokyo and Milano Collection AT, October 15th, 2003. June was a new member, rather, to Crazy Max. He teams with Shima. You got 3 of the 4 big dogs in there, and then June. And he looks like a big dog for that match, and that match only.
Yeah, that is a one-match comp tape for him. So one that I had, Case, that I kind of want your thoughts on this one, because I view it as an elevation match, like in the vein of Jackie Funky Kamei walked into Korakuen Hall, or not Korakuen Hall, Kobe World Kennen Hall last year and exited a different person. I want to take you to 2011. The return of Akira Tozawa from Excursion, the Gate of Maximum show from June 8th. Blood Warriors, the debuting Blood Warriors, Akira Tozawa, BB Hulk, Shima, Naruki Doi, and Izushi Kanda defeat Gamma, Masaki Mochizuki, Masato Yoshino, Shingo Takagi, Yamato of Junction 3. And this was one where I think that although this was the heel turn for Hulk and he is elevated with this, Akira Tozawa comes back to a shocked crowd and leaves after stacking up Gamma's body and becoming a whole new person, and the company changes thereafter.
I think that's a great comp. That's not what I thought of.
Yeah, it was just one of the ones where I was just like, can you argue this as being the big elevation one? Because this wasn't necessarily the performance. This was just pure booking got Tozawa to.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
So those were a couple more of those. A couple other notes before we got out of here. Naruki Doi, I don't think this got officially announced, but it looks like that probably DDT will be announcing this soon. Takesha is back in the States for his current tour with All Elite Wrestling. He has mentioned that, and Doi responded that one of the people that he's interested in seeing DDT now and getting a match with is Naruki Doi, since Naruki Doi has started to freelance. And really DDT, other than like the big Dragongate shows and like the constant Dragongate shows, I would say DDT is kind of Doi's home. And it looks like they are building that one up in the future.
Yep, that is good stuff there. Obviously, just to backtrack for 1 second, if you can think of any other made man matches like we were just talking about, please let us know in the Discord, because I'm curious and I'm trying to put together a little list of those. But as for Doi Takeshita, that match sounds awesome, and I hope DDT does it, and I hope it is as good as we want it to be, because Doi's had a very good year and Takeshita's Takeshita, so good on DDT for doing that.
Yeah, it's something where I look at that, and although that they're going to want to do that in Osaka, I really want them to keep that match in. I want them to keep that match in Tokyo. That just seems to make a lot of sense. I've been trying to stall a little bit, Case. I'm trying to look up the exact match and the date for this, but I had another one I was going to throw at you to see if you bought it for rocket ship made men matches. If you give me just 1 second.
Yeah, please dig in, because I said earlier, I think it's one of those things that Dragongate does, and they do it better than anybody. And I struggle to think outside of the basic Young Lion system, where, I can think of even Okada Young Lion matches. Like there were times where it's like, oh, this guy's going to be a guy. You think about Young Kenta and stuff like that. I just don't think any other promotion does it the way Dragongate does it, where it's ham-fisted and it's over the top, but it's effective, and they have this track record of being really effective with it. I just think it's such an interesting topic.
What was okay, now I can't find the show. Wasn't there a match that both El Lindemann and Katoka jumped in on as millennials? Yeah, no, that this was exactly what I was thinking about. All right, my last one, Case, for you. This was from January 16th, 2015. This one, not as strong, not as made man, but at least for 2 people on the roster, this was their big step up and really made them, especially one of them, in the eyes of the Tokyo audience. This was Mad Blanky, Shima, Cyber Kong, Dr. Muscle, Gamma, Kness, and Yamato versus Millennials, Eita, T-Hawk, UT, Yosuke Santa Maria, and new members as of that night, Kotoka and Yuga Hayashi, who would rename himself as El Lindaman after this match.
What was the date on that?
This was January 16th, 2015.
Oh man, I don't remember that. I mean, I watched it, I reviewed. Well, I don't think I reviewed that. I was doing reviews as July. Man, yeah, I don't remember that.
This was the first Korakuen of the year that had a pretty. I will say this.
Can you go through the card? Can you just read that card for me?
I want to go through this card because this one night, a Dream Key tournament is insane. So it opened with.
Was this the? Did they do Shimizu and Susumu on this show?
Yes, they did.
Okay,
yes,
sorry.
Yeah,
Okay, I
you
remember
out
this show. I don't remember this match. Okay, go ahead.
So this show it opened with Jimmy's versus unaffiliated. This was Genki Horiguchi, Kagetora, and Ryo defeat Kotoka, Super Shisa, and then Yuga Hayashi.
That's my super team right there. Kotoka, Shisa, and Yuga Hayashi. That's my, you put a certain dollar figure in my wallet, and boy, are you going to see that trio a lot in Japan.
And then you throw, you throw Yuga into the van and tell him to go get his hair dyed.
Yep. That's coming to Basement Monstar near you. The K-Slow Proto Show, Kotoka, Super Shisa, and the man formerly known as Yuga Hayashi. They are a trio once again.
You know, that's not too far. We could get this on a Galate show if you're okay with doing a 60 seconds reunion, and we can get a little bit Shiba on Shiba action.
The fact that the concept of a 60 seconds reunion is so foreign to me. I just can't. I can't embrace that.
So the rest of the show, we had Jimmy Kanda, Mr. QQ, Naoku Tanizaki, Toniyaka, Dolphin. Almost said that perfectly, which I've been proud of. Defeat Mondai Ryu and Punch Tominaga of Mad Blanky, or open the Dreamgate #1 contendership one night tournament. Shimizu over Don Fuji in 2 minutes and 56 seconds. Jimmy Susumu defeats Kenichiro Arai. So if you're wondering who were the other people in this tournament, Kenichiro Arai. Dia Hearts defeat Monster Express. This was Tozawa, Shingo, and Sachi team. And then you had the 5-on-4 Mad Blanky defeat the Millennials, and then they bring out their new Millennials members, Kotoka and Yuga Hayashi, to defeat Mad Blanky on the path towards the end of Mad Blanky.
That's crazy. I don't remember this show outside of Shimizu versus Susumu, which was awesome.
Great match.
I don't remember the rest of this show. You know, I really liked a lot of the Dia Hearts Monster Express stuff, but I don't recall that 6-man. I don't recall Mad Blanky Millennials. That's that's so weird. I mean, obviously it's January 2015 Korakuen. Who the hell cares? But I'm pretty good at this stuff, and I'm surprised I don't remember this show.
Yeah, I feel like the big thing that was talked about at the time was, they did the whole Kotoka and El Lindaman dyed their hair during the show to pull off the turn. Like, that was kind of like the big things. They came out in like brand new gear and new hair color during.
People thought Lindaman ruined his career when he changed his name, because Yuga Hayashi was such a good name. Hayashi's very chantable, and he went to Lindaman. And look, I wish he would have changed it back at some point, but he's turned out okay.
It's worked out for him. Like, if you were to tell me on January 16th, 2015, okay, so here are the next 8 years for El Lindaman, I feel like I've been like, that's weird. Like,
yeah, it's not how I drew it up.
Yeah. That sounds like that some stuff's going down, and then I would be like, yeah, some stuff went down.
You have no idea.
Let me tell you about what you discover at WrestleMania weekend.
I was just about to say, you'll never believe what Mike heard at WrestleMania weekend.
So, but that was just one more big elevation match we wanted to touch on. But yeah, no, I would have to go back in time and explain a lot of things. Like, all right, so here's who Tony Khan is.
Yeah. So you thought Shingo was good now. Just you wait a decade.
Yeah. Akira Tozawa, yeah, no, he's still doing that. Don't worry. I just want you to know that he's alive. He's okay. But just delete him.
Just dead to me.
But I mean, he's finally like showing out now.
Oh, well, he's got all that potential. Yeah, Triple H has really unlocked something.
The thing that I loved about that GIF before we go, Case, you know what's the number one thing that I love about that GIF more so than anything else?
What's that?
It is the exact same Akira Tozawa babyface comeback routine that he's done basically since he turned face and started.
Oh
Mante
no,
Express.
it's great. It's the same thing. It's not even potential. He's just doing the same thing he did a decade ago.
Yeah, no, literally, it's like, oh yeah, no, he's doing he's going underneath the legs.
Yep, crawling under, German suplex. Got it. Okay.
Got it. There we go. Yep.
It's like I always talk about how I could do Ultimo's comeback, like I could feed and bump for him. And so the Tozawa comeback's the same thing. I've seen it a million times. I know exactly what he does.
But at the same time, it was a little affirming knowing that it is the exact same thing that we knew it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
So on-air production meeting, Mike, you're not available next Tuesday. I'm not available next Monday. So I think we're going to take next week off for the holidays.
Mm-hmm. That works for me.
We do have a Hall of Fame issue coming out this Friday. So listeners of the show, allow us to be a week late on our Hall of Fame takes because I have a very bad feeling about this ballot. And this is my platform, and I will want to talk about it. So hang tight with me, everybody, and we'll see. I feel like it was like 2020. We said the same thing. Where it's like, well, we'll see the results of the election, and it'll kind of determine our mood for the next week. I'm in a very similar spot this year with Dave's Hall of Fame. This is my 2020 election.
For a second, I had to go like, who was in the Observer ballot in 2020?
No, presidential, the people that run the country, the free world.
I know that's what had me laughing. Was like, why did I go with that? You wrestle brain sick person.
Yeah, look, things in America, they're gonna work out for me, kind of no matter what. I've got the right disposition where I'm gonna be fine. But the Observer Hall of Fame, I could really get fucked here. I'm not happy about it.
Hey, and we will be back in a couple weeks to talk all about that and Dragongate going into their busy December. It so happens that there's really not a lot happening on the Dragongate network in November as well. So
no, I think there's one more broadcast, and it's like it's the Genki Homecoming show.
Yeah, it's Genki's Homecoming show at the end of the month.
And that cool building in Kumamoto.
Yeah, I wonder if Mrs. Horiguchi is there because she used to always bring be the person that would because she has a cafe in Kumamoto that she always would bring and set up the snack table. I wonder if she's there. I hope they get footage if she's there.
I hope so too.
But we'll be back in a few weeks to talk about that. You can follow us on Twitter at Open VoiceGate. Cases at _ in your case. I'm at Fujiheya. Thanks for coming to Open VoiceGate. We'll be back with you next time. Take care.
Hi, my name is Tyler Fornes, and I am the co-host of The Good, the Bad, and the Hunky here on the Voice Wrestling Podcasting Network. Every week, my co-host Fred Moreland and I discuss all the happenings of All Elite Wrestling and everything going on in the universe of Tony Khan. We talk about Dynamite, we talk about Rampage, and we will talk about Collision when the time comes as well, along with all the appearances outside of AEW from all the best talents in All Elite Wrestling. This is one of the more cohesive wrestling companies in the entire world, and we discuss every intricacy about it, including the unique booking of Tony Khan that is both a huge positive and a major detriment. Check us out every single Thursday here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.